All right, let's just dive right into this explainer because we are looking at one of the absolute most mind-bending survival marvels in human history. I mean, picture this. You're standing out in the brutal, freezing expanse of the Arctic Circle. The wind is just howling, the temperature is absolutely tanking, and honestly, if you stay exposed for even a few more minutes, you literally won't survive. So what on earth do you do? Well, you build a house out of the exact same stuff that's actively trying to freeze you to death. Snow.
I know, it sounds completely counterintuitive, right? It's basically the ultimate paradox. How in the world can a shelter made entirely of frozen water keep you from freezing to death in literally the harshest environment on Earth? Well, today we're unpacking the fascinating thermodynamic science and the ancient engineering genius that actually makes this impossible feat a reality. I mean, think about it. Our modern technology constantly struggles in these extremes, yet indigenous Inuit populations have absolutely thrived here for over 5,000 years using nothing but frozen water.
And we aren't just talking about a chilly day here. We're talking about surviving the brutal extremes of the Arctic tundra, where the outside temp can easily plummet to 50 degrees below zero. Just to put that into perspective for a second, that is significantly colder than the deep freezer in your kitchen. At those temps, exposed skin gets irreversible frostbite in minutes. Finding proper shelter out there isn't just about getting comfortable. It's a literal urgent matter of life and death. And without trees or, a local hardware store, these master builders turned to the one single resource they had in endless supply. But to really wrap our heads around this paradox, we kind of have to completely redefine how we think about the very concepts of cold and heat. You know how we always yell at the kids to shut the front door before they let the cold in? Well, scientifically speaking, cold doesn't actually exist as a tangible thing. Seriously, what you're feeling is simply thermal energy, or heat, actively leaving your body. You're not absorbing cold from the air around you. You're just losing your own precious body heat to the environment.
So, the true genius of the igloo is that its entire design is just meticulously engineered to conquer all three methods of heat transfer. Out there on the tundra, the harsh environment is relentlessly trying to steal your heat. To survive, you absolutely have to stop heat from conducting directly into the icy ground. You've got to block the convection currents from blowing your hard-earned warmth away. And you must trap the radiant heat bouncing off your own skin before it escapes into the sky. It's like a giant thermal puzzle. Now, to figure out exactly how to trap that heat, these ancient builders didn't actually have to look very far. The blueprint comes straight from the animal kingdom. Take animals like sea otters and polar bears. They don't just rely on a thick layer of blubber to stay warm. Instead, they insulate themselves by trapping these microscopic pockets of air deep within their fur. As it turns out, still air is an absolutely phenomenal insulator. And that exact biological trick, that's the hidden secret behind our frozen architecture. Now, you might be thinking these structures are built from solid blocks of ice. But actually, scratch that, it's the single biggest misconception we need to clear up. Thanks to cartoons and movies, we always picture igloos looking like a big pile of giant ice cubes. But if you actually tried to build a shelter out of pure solid ice, you'd basically be locking yourself inside a giant, unforgiving freezer, and your body heat would just vanish almost instantly. No way you'd survive that. So here is the critical difference we really have to understand. Solid ice is incredibly dense, and it'll suck the heat right out of you through direct conduction. But compressed snow? Compressed snow is a totally different ballgame. It's roughly 90 to 95% trapped air. Because of all those millions of tiny, still air pockets, compressed snow acts exactly like a puffy winter down jacket or even a styrofoam coffee cup. It stops heat loss dead in its tracks. You're basically wrapping yourself in a giant white thermal blanket. And because picking the perfect snow is absolutely vital for this insulation to actually work, Inuit builders seek out a highly specific Goldilocks snow. Their language actually features dozens of distinct words for snow. They know exactly how to avoid fluffy, weak powder, which they call matsik, because it'll just collapse. Instead, these master builders cut densely packed snow straight from the hardened ground. They literally listen for a very specific, satisfying crunch just to ensure the block will hold structurally while still trapping all that essential insulating air inside. But hey, having the right snow is really only half the battle. Let's unpack the interior layout. Because an igloo isn't just some random pile of snow blocks haphazardly shoved together to block the wind. Not at all. It's a highly sophisticated multi-level machine that actively uses the fundamental laws of physics to control the internal climate. The shape and the interior layout are just as crucial as the snow itself when it comes to keeping you alive in these extremes. Every single design choice here serves a very specific physical purpose. Take the floors, for example. The entrance is actually a sunken tunnel that acts exactly like a bouncer at a club. Because of basic density, cold air is heavy and naturally sinks, so it literally gets trapped down in this lower entrance tunnel. Meanwhile, warm air is lighter and naturally rises. Knowing this, the builders created elevated sleeping platforms inside. This keeps the people continuously bathed in the warm air that's pooling near the top of the dome. And the overarching shape of the igloo, it's not just a cute aesthetic choice, it is a legitimate structural marvel. It isn't a perfect half sphere. It's actually what's called a catenoid curve. This precise mathematical shape is so balanced and structurally sound that a properly built dome distributes weight perfectly straight down to the ground, without buckling. In fact, it is so incredibly stable that a fully grown person can literally stand right on the roof of a structure made entirely of snow and it won't collapse. How wild is that? This also creates a brilliant, completely natural HVAC system. Up at the very top of the dome, there's a small ventilation hole called a chingak. As warm, moist air rises and escapes through this vent, it creates a gentle little suction that pulls fresh, oxygenated air right in through microscopic gaps in the walls. So it continually cycles in fresh air and pushes out dangerous moisture, which, by the way, would otherwise ruin the insulation and freeze you. It essentially breathes all on its own entirely through physics without a single drop of electricity. Okay, let's dive into the final piece of this puzzle. So you've constructed this incredible, windproof, heavily insulated dome. But here's the thing. Insulation itself doesn't actually create heat, right? It only traps the heat that's already there. So this naturally begs the question, where exactly does the heat come from in the first place, if you're just sitting inside what is effectively a giant, hollowed-out snowball on the frozen tundra? Well, the crucial point here is that every single resting human body acts as a tiny biological furnace. Just by sitting there and existing, your body is actively pumping out around 330 British thermal units of heat every single hour. To put that into perspective, an average family generates about as much thermal energy as a small electrical space heater. When you put a family of 4 or 5 inside this highly insulated, reflective snow space, all that heat has absolutely nowhere to go but right back into the room. Fascinatingly enough, this heat dynamic actually changes depending on your age. Young children produce slightly more body heat per pound than adults do. A sleeping child gives off about 0.87 watts per kilogram, compared to an adult's 0.8 watts. Because of this really cool biological trait, kids essentially act like tiny, adorable radiators. Traditionally, they're nestled safely at the very back of the elevated sleeping platform, surrounded by adults, in what naturally becomes the absolute warmest, safest part of the entire shelter. And this leads to what is arguably the most mind-blowing fact about the whole shebang. The radiant heat from the people inside creates this incredible feedback loop. The warmth slightly melts the inner layer of the snow walls, but because of the freezing temperatures inside the blocks themselves, that moisture immediately refreezes into a slick, solid ice barrier. Think about that for a second. The simple act of a family just sleeping through the night actively fortifies the structure, sealing up microscopic cracks and literally making the home stronger the longer they live inside it.
Of course, sometimes when it is just unimaginably cold outside, human body heat alone isn't quite going to cut it. That's when the Inuit utilize the quillic. This is an ingenious 3,000-year-old crescent-shaped stone lamp that burns seal or whale oil. It operates with such incredible precision, creating a smoke-free flame that acts like an ancient thermostat. By masterfully managing the flame's size and distance, they can effectively crank up the internal temperature without ever melting the snow ceiling right above it. Thanks to this perfect combination of snow insulation, those brilliant architectural cold traps, and the internal heat generation, the final results are just absolutely staggering. The temperature difference between the brutal outside wind and the cozy inside air can reach an unbelievable 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Imagine stepping out of a lethal sub-zero blizzard where it's 40 below and into a space warm enough that you can just take off your heavy winter coat. You're sitting comfortably at 60 degrees above zero, all inside a structure made entirely of frozen water. And these structures, they aren't just cool historical curiosities. They are absolute masterclasses in sustainable design. In fact, they're so incredibly efficient at managing heat retention and airflow that they are actually teaching today's leading engineers a thing or two. Modern architects are actively studying these traditional igloo design principles to figure out how we can build better, greener, and more heavily insulated homes for the modern world. It really just proves that sometimes the absolute best technology is actually the oldest. So it really leaves you wondering, as we face our own modern climate and energy challenges, what other brilliant natural solutions are we completely overlooking today? If trial, error, and a profound respect for nature can teach humans how to turn a literal frozen wasteland into a warm, inviting sanctuary, just imagine what else we could achieve if we truly understood the physics of the natural world around us. It's definitely something to think about the next time you find yourself complaining about a chilly draft in your house.